Psalm 8. O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth, who has set thy glory above the heavens. Amen. It's time for another class of Bible Smack with New Year's Cosmology Class. A hypothesis is formed. Which number are we on now? Is it 7? 6 or 7?
7, I think.
7. All right. We're going to go with that. Class 7. All right. So now that we've gotten through this area of issues of revelation, now it's time that we form the hypothesis. Now, one thing that evolution has on a quote-unquote creation science is that it has its myth already made and inculcated for over 150 years. The Bible has a story for several thousand years, and that's great, but it has not put it into the scientific language and hypothesis and stuff like that. So, what I did was, when we first started doing this, we call it a New Year's Cosmology Class, because I want to have this is a philosophical cosmology developed. But now we go into the hypothesis, which will deal with the evidence in later classes. But we do want to tell the story of the New Year's cosmology. Now, we start off with God creating a universe out of nothing, the heaven and the earth, and working everything out from there. Now, the material universe we've already dealt with is dependent on energy, dependent on really God for any form, any design, any substance, any structure, any design. So, we start off with that. We have a God-formed universe empowered. Now, when we look at the earth, okay, I'm not doing anything to scale, so I don't want to hear any of these complaints about, oh, it's not to scale. It's not to scale. I'm telling you a story. So we have the earth, and let's say the earth is like that. Okay, do you see that there? You probably don't, but I do see the dot right there. Okay, I'll just skew that down a little bit. All right, let's see here. There we go. There's the dot. Now basically, universe, let's say it's like this. Alright, and inside that universe, this is all an exploding Big Bang universe with that string theory where it's going faster than the speed of light. Now, New Year's cosmology does not start off with that scale of a universe. I'm actually a little bit agnostic into how to scale the universe, because we'll go over this in a later episode. There's so many problems with saying that we really know exactly how big the universe is. But if I were a guessing guy, we start off, instead of this exploding beach ball, we start off with an apple. Well, that's just the size of an apple, okay? So let me see here. And within that apple is an atom, okay? So the very atom in the center that's the universe. And that is, that little atom that you cannot see is the earth. So, within this universe, it is spinning. Okay, we have a spinning universe, but there is a Coriolis shell. Now, when we talk about the Coriolis effect, we usually talk about it from the spinning Earth idea, so that the Coriolis effect is keeping us from, flying all over the place when we're supposed to be going I'm supposed to be going 33 miles a second. The reason, according to them, that I'm not is because of this Coriolis effect. Well, when you switch it, the Earth is stable. So I'm not moving because I'm not moving, but there is a spin that's going on in the universe, and it's the Coriolis effect that is protecting the universe inside. Okay? There are certain things that we notice, and I would argue that what we are noticing, for instance, like with the red shift, is actually an effect of the temperature and friction that's caused by the outward edges of the spinning universe. But things are generally protected here, and the substance of the space is what we call ether. And by the way, you can do it with just the E, or you can do it with the AE, doesn't really matter. But this ether is a substance within the space, and then there is the force of electromagnetic energy that is permeating throughout the whole universe. And that electromagnetic energy is in a spin. Now, our stars are moving in a positive direction. Our black holes are moving in a negative direction. And within that, we have everything knitted together, like as it were a Christmas tree. It's December as we're taping, so why not? So basically, everything is knitted together, and so there's these wires holding all these lights together. Alright? And everything's moving alongside. But we are not on the outside looking at a Christmas tree. Alright? We have the Earth, and then we have all these movements of the stars. Now, this is all going together in a big whirlpool around the Earth. Now, it used to not have such a great tilt, okay? And at that point, there was a star up here, and I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. It's kind of a Greek mythology type of thing. I think it was Thugbin, okay? If I'm off, sorry, okay? You're reading stuff, sometimes you don't know how to pronounce it. But that was what we call Polaris, the North Star, the star of the North. And because we had directly connected with our North Pole, so you had this direct connection. This is the one star that's not moving, and all these other stars are, because there is an eye of the tornado in the center of this spinning universe. Okay? Now, at some point, there was an intergalactic catastrophe that brought what we had then to what we got now. Now, the Earth used to be surrounded by a canopy, a globed canopy of ice, shielding us from awkward radiation and other things. And this Earth had amounts of water underneath the shell, subterranean. So you have this shell over the Earth, and there were waters 10 to 20 miles below the Earth. And yet above the Earth, we had this canopy that was protecting us, that was producing a greenhouse effect, which is why we have giant animals in the past. It would make the air thicker, which is why pterodactyls were able to fly even though they would be too heavy today. We had more oxygen, which is what we find in ancient amber. When we take the little packets of air that it had 20 to 50% of oxygen instead of today's 8%. We had so much oxygen that you could have the giant dinosaur with his little head. Alright, you have something the size of a horse with those nostrils, and yet all this body would be taken care of. So we also had more heat. And so you could find dinosaurs up in the North Arctic as far as the fossils. Okay? And we proved that recently with a snake called Titanoboa. Now, I'll be talking about this more later, so don't get me wrong. But this thing demands more heat because it's cold-blooded. It's a cold-blooded snake. So basically, we needed more heat, more pressure, more oxygen, and that's what we got with our ice canopy. Now, so here we are in this pre-flood world, and man encourages God's wrath. Now, over our atmosphere, we have several constellations. Okay. One of which is the constellation Draco. And basically, you had this one little dipper. Okay? Now, I believe that at this point in history, these constellations must have been joined together. So perhaps it's over here, and we have the serpent in the Garden of Eden. And what do we always talk about with the serpent in the Garden of Eden? That he lost his legs. Well, how did he lose his legs? And what was the serpent? The serpent was also beautiful Lucifer. Because in Bible prophecy it talks about the angels, like the seraphim, being like the seraphs, which were serpentile, or snakes. So you had this, and you had God in his throne above north. And so basically there was an intergalactic catastrophe in this zodiac. Okay, I know there's other, constellations. I'm not doing the art thing right now. But basically, within here, you had the glory of God being covered by Lucifer. And Lucifer rebels against God. And then we have the fall in the Garden of Eden. And so Lucifer would hit his own fall, and we discussed the scriptures in the last episode. So then what happens? The intergalactic catastrophe. This spinning top gets tipped over. Okay? And so no longer is Thuban the Polaris. It's no longer the North Star. Today's Polaris is that part of the Little Dipper. So it gets knocked off. And that causes the whole thing to tip, which would also cause the sun, being part of the universe, to tip too, which makes it go into a yearly annual cycle. And this is where I differ from a normal geocentrist, because they would usually have that cycle all together throughout the whole period. Okay? But what I'm doing is that now it is a new year. It's a new year. So basically what has happened is there is an annual cycle of a tipping of the whole universe. It goes along with this. All right? And the pressure from those tipping points would make a normal star sometimes explode into a supernova. Meanwhile, some of these stars were mapped together, they were strung together by electromagnetic cords and energy. And I believe that these cords being pulled and stretched and ripped would become our modern quasars. Okay? Because it's a ripping of the fabric of space, but not quantum-wise, but magnetized. And so that's what's going on with the universe as it's tilting back and forth. So now, what's going on? Well, basically, this happens. We have Polaris, that North Star. Well, that North Star is actually at least 3 stars. I've heard some places say it's 6. But this North Star has a star today that we call a neutron star. The neutron stars are the stars that they suspect have had gamma ray bursters. And these gamma ray bursters can sometimes have the power of a star. And they could go all the way across the universe. But they don't always have that much power. But yet this gamma ray burster comes down. Probably a couple other ones. Okay, throughout this whole thing, there's probably a lot of gamma ray bursters going on. Okay? Because now we have an intergalactic catastrophe. And so now, here it is, due north, comes down, and hits our Earth. Now our Earth is protected by that ice canopy. But the electromagnetic field of the Earth is much stronger and guides this radiation to our electromagnetic North Pole, which has shifted in different times, so I'm not sure which, place it started up there. But it goes down, and it gets down and is like a lightning rod drawn into the Earth, where we have these subterranean waters. Okay? Now, if you look at the Arctic Ocean, you will find that it is deep, and it's also got these trenches that go down. And it looks like it collapsed. And it's a big circle of an ocean. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to go for some perfect circle. But it is this round ocean, okay? And it's just scarred and messed up around here. And basically, it had to have hit down. And as it buries down, it would boil the subterranean waters. Which, of course, if you apply heat to it, it wants to expand. Okay? But it's also heating up the Earth's mantle. And so, imagine what it would be like in the Earth's mantle. Perhaps many of the elements, maybe, okay, I'm using loose here, but maybe granite, okay, it gets heated up and it fuses. With all that energy, it fuses some of these elements together into our modern radioactive elements like uranium, plutonium, polonium, okay? All these radioactive things are made because the original fusion had them loosely put together. So it buries itself down into the Earth, and it boils. Lucifer has fallen into the depths. Now, it also says that he went to Hades, and the Jewish Hebrew language implies a watery grave. So, Lucifer, which was the serpent, has fallen to the watery graves. It has boiled these things up, and then it finally breaks out. Now, I believe that probably it was the breaking out point around the mid-Atlantic ridge, specifically Iceland. And that so it comes out, shoots out of Iceland, and then it starts a crack going all the way down. And of course, we know that today, this is the mid-Atlantic ridge. Now, it goes into other places in other parts of the world. But, as it breaks out, it shoots out these jets 30 miles into the air. And it cracks this ice canopy. So you have things shooting out. Okay, cracking the ice canopy. Once it does that, alright, now that's a round moon, but I figure it's a good symbol of a moon. Yeah, not very hard. But basically, we see giant craters in the moon. Why do we find those craters in the moon? Because we have huge amounts of water and dirt that are kicked out of the Earth, and then they form comets and asteroids. And so this hits the moon. We also see it later on hitting Mars. There's a giant canyon in Mars. Neptune is on its side. Now, I don't know if that's from these comets and craters or if it could be from another gamma ray burster. But then again, you have there's a long distance between Earth and Neptune, a lot longer than the chalkboard. So maybe the impact could have hit it for a loop all the way out there. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, this crater, it splits over and it shoves North America, creating the Atlantic Ocean. There's a giant plate of the Pacific Ocean that sinks down. This is why we got sunken islands in the Pacific Ocean. And it shifts the plate over and digs down. And so when it digs down, we have the Himalayan mountains. We have all this penetration right here and some of the deepest ravines in the Pacific Ocean on the Asian side. And we have this ring of fire. Why? Because these plates have been shifted. And all this water that was underneath the Pacific, either it goes out of the earth or it flows out, and then the water goes around this canopy and rains down for 40 days and 40 nights. Okay? So basically we have the 40 days and 40 nights, and the water's coming into the Pacific. Now the oceans, about 50% of the oceans were there, and most of it was under the earth though. So now we have this new water coming in and just flooding over the earth, and eventually that is to go down and subside and everything like that. But essentially, what happens to the ice canopy? The ice canopy is all shattered. The magnetics is all out of whack. So, the ice canopy eventually goes to the north and to the south, making the ice of the Arctic and the Antarctic, and actually starting up the Ice Age. Now, let's see here. Are there any other aspects of the New Year's cosmology hypothesis? I will be dealing with these things in a stretched out format, dealing with these facts, putting it together. But basically, that's what we have. So I'm going to be presenting the evidence for the New Year's cosmology hypothesis. But this is basically the storyline of what happened that ignited the Great Flood and has put a look at our universe from a scientific and a biblical point of view. And so we will, I'm sure there are other details, and obviously I'll just fill them in with the rest of the class. But basically, that is your bird's eye view of what the story is, how the hypothesis is now formed with the New Year's cosmology hypothesis. God bless you.